So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
So let's say it again, that the model of being gives us the pure verticals. But when the model of being and the Dorley matrix are together, are seen together, what is being shown is the relationship of the reflection of the pure vertical with the laws of absolute Christian Science. And this brings out the field, the whole field of Christian Science in a 16-fold way. Let's just try it. Let's start, shall we, with our flow. Is it best for me to leave this illustration on or the hypothesis? This one, huh? This one came about between coasts because we felt that it would be helpful to have something that showed both tables so that we can keep our orientation in view. So let's just try to begin and see that what the word matrix is showing us now. If we think of that word matrix as the calculus matrix that is bringing really to the level of Christian Science the full impact of the calculus, of the level of divine science, and of the level of absolute Christian Science. It's really that interdependence, that great law of interdependence between those two calculi of absolute Christian Science and divine science that brings about Christian Science, the calculus of Christian Science. You see, Christian Science can't stand alone. We know that, don't we? We know it from our understanding of the model of being, that the laws on the level of Christian Science cannot stand alone. They are the impact of the higher level laws. And this is just what the word matrix wants to show us, that we have a whole array of what the impact of the higher level laws are on the level of Christian Science. So that whole word, that word of life, okay, here we go now. So I say the word of life. What do I know about life? So I come now to a capitalized term. I'm all in the field of capitalized terms. Now I'm in the 7,000-year period frame. But perhaps I'm not really as cultured as I would like to be about those capitalized terms. Maybe I have to think now, let me see, what is life on the level of divine science? What is life, truth, and love on the level of absolute Christian Science? And so now we have to go the other direction and ask the question, how can we find more information, or where do we find more information about the capitalized terms in the language of the 6,000-year period? Because that's what consciousness is asking for. If it is not full and rich and rounded and happy and satisfied and complete in the capitalized term, then it is longing for the 6,000-year period language. Huh? So where can we go to get some help? And we can go really right to the survey. So we're on the level of divine science. We can begin by seeing that divine science is characterized by what? What is the pedal note of divine science? It's the inseparability of principle and idea. It is the divine oneness, the all-embracing sense, the all-encompassing sense, the all-inclusive being. This would be some sense of the pedal note of divine science, which must carry right down, you see, to that I index in the word matrix. That is the tone of the self. Did you hear it? So if I have the self-declaration of God, the self-translation of God, the self-reflection of God, the self-interpretation of God as science, you can hear it's that inseparability of principle and idea, that all-inclusiveness, that oneness sense. If it's within itself, you see there's nothing outside. There's no relationship of principle to an idea, to an individual idea, or of ideas to principle, or of ideas to each other. This will come on the level of absolute Christian Science. So it's that pure tone of divine science, which now is going to be qualified through the Word. And the Word, you could now, if you had your Four Levels book, I don't think I asked you to bring it, but it was part of the preparation. In the Four Levels book, you would go to that section on page 92 and 93, where we begin to get the characterization of what divine science is at the point of the Word. And Max Kapler says there that the Word presents the self-declaration of being. It says continually, I am the one Word, the one divine Word, the divine declaration of that which constitutes the intrinsic nature of being. So this is the beginning of the building up of the tonality that we need for that whole descent, that whole vertical within the word matrix. That it's that the I am saying, I am the I am, the one being. You see that if being is saying something, it's saying something about itself. And so it is saying something about itself to itself. You can always fall back on that law of divine science to get that tonality, that being is declaring itself out of itself, meaning from within itself. That's what the out of means. It doesn't mean that something's coming out of something and going somewhere else. But the out of is that sense of out from within itself, through itself, as itself, for itself, you see. So it's that itself. And if being is saying something about itself to itself, the language that it will use is the language of the capitalized terms. Does that make sense? It will speak. Divine science will speak to itself, about itself, in its own language. There's no need to translate it. Yeah. And that's what we see expressed in the Dorley matrix, that sense of the I am declaring itself to itself, out of itself, through itself, as itself, for itself, and consequently in its own language, with no need to translate itself as ideas. I just want to put the hypothesis back on. I want to refer to that. So you will be able to go to that survey and to all of the text that explains that survey. You see how we're going back? We're going back to everything that we have had. It's as though this week we go back to everything we've had, to the Four Levels book, to the laws. When we get further into the orders, we will see that we go to the structure of the orders on the level of Christian Science. We fall back on everything that we've had. It's, if nothing else, a terrific exercise in the categories of being, in everything that we have learned about the science of being. And so that one life is what? It's the sense of the self-existency of being. You see, it's the self again, that self-existency. The self always implies the four. The self always implies the calculus. Being, he says, draws indivisibly and inexhaustibly from within its own being. That the word presents itself in absolute clarity as the infinite light. So we have that infinite light of life. We have the infinite individuality of life, all as the great tone that is permeating that whole vertical, and impelling itself on the level of Christian Science. If I say impelling itself, I've touched then the level of absolute Christian Science, which shows us the laws of impulsion, or the laws of spontaneity. And I love to see that even though that law of life, truth, and love is the law of creative impulsion, that actually every one of those laws on the level of absolute Christian Science, it has an office of impulsion. So that in the word, life, truth, and love is impelling on Christian Science the one life, is bringing forth to absolute Christian Science that one infinite individuality of life, that infinite light of life, that whole self-existency of life, impelling that. Yeah. But when we come to the Christ, to the self-translation, then we have the one truth on the level of divine science as the self-expression of being, as the ideal of being. You see, that one truth is the ideal truth. It is truth itself. And then we see that through the laws of interdependence, there is a translation going on, so that the one truth translates itself as the law of truth, life, and love, becomes the law of truth, life, and love, which is able to impel on the level of Christian Science, to impel the one truth. So we have that impulsion being shown here, or what the effect of the impulsion of the whole of the law of interdependence at the point of the Christ, as that breaks in on Christian Science. We have the vertical, the Christ vertical in the word matrix. That was not very clear. Was it? Now, what we want to say is that the laws on the level of divine science, or the law on the level of divine science, which is characterized as the one life, the one truth, the one love, as the inner implicate core of the divine principle love, Trinity and unity, the tri-unity of the principle, that one great law of divine science holds within itself, or contains within itself, the ability to translate into laws of impulsion. And the laws of impulsion are the laws on the level of absolute Christian Science. Every one of those laws is an impulsion to the level of Christian Science, is impelling something to the level of Christian Science, bringing the divine to Christian Science, impacting Christian Science with its divinity. You see? And so as that impact is breaking in, the result on the level of Christian Science is what we see through the four verticals of the Dorley matrix. Yeah.